You are listening to the Exceptional Conservative Network. For more information, go to www.theexceptionalconservativeshow.com.
Sharing of biased and false news has become all too common on social media. More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
The sharing of biased and false
news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish these stories simply aren't true without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think, and this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
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 This is extremely dangerous.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome to the New. I'm your host, Randy&April, and we are a danger to your democracy. Anyways, I hope you all had a great weekend. A lot was going on. A lot of stuff went down over the weekend. But first and foremost, I want to send our condolences to the friends, families, and loved ones of Leon Spinks. He passed away at the age of 67 this weekend from cancer. So, but for those that don't know Leon Spinks, he fought Muhammad Ali, beat him, and he's been a prolific fighter during those years and decades ago. But he was very loved in the communities and everything else. And so, like I said, on behalf of the TECN family, we stand our thoughts and prayers to the loved ones there. This weekend, I finally did something that I guess you could say I'm behind the power curve on a little bit. Drop my chair down here. Nope, not that one. Nope, okay, oh well. Anyways, so there's something over the weekend that I've been, I guess you could say anticipating, not anticipating, but just been putting off. But I finally got a Sam's Club membership. Yes, I went to Sam's Club last night. Got this brand new chair. The other one was kind of like really squeaky and it was falling apart from the move from Italy and everything else. So I finally found a chair that I liked and I got it, and here I am in it today, and I can't get the seat down because I'm a little too high. But nah, they didn't change. Okay, anyways, so I got that done. But the club it's really cool in there. I've been to a Sam's Club years ago when I was living in Maryland, and I wasn't really impressed. I was like, okay, it's just a bulk version of Walmart, I guess. But this one, it was really cool. I mean, they had a lot of stuff in there. I was just like, whoa. But the funny thing was, I only had 30 minutes to shop, so it was grandbaby, the daughter with me, and everything. It was like a lot of stuff going on, plus signing up for the membership and doing all that. So I only had 30 minutes to get some stuff and get out. But I might go later on and peruse around. So we'll see. But anyways, Super Bowl. Man, what a game that was. I don't know if I didn't watch it. I'm going to watch games this season. Everybody knows I'm a Patriots fan, so it was kind of pissing me off that they Cam Newton, like he was playing, because I was catching highlights throughout the season. But yeah, I wasn't happy to see this season. But congratulations to Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski, former Patriots, for winning the Super Bowl with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 31-9 over the Kansas City Chiefs. Wow, that was like a blowout. But to the commentary that was given last night, uh, it seemed like it was a lopsided game, mainly because the refs were on the side of the Buccaneers. Speculation, it could be. I don't know. I did see a few calls that was a little skeptical, little sketchy there. But hey, that's the NFL for you. It's gonna go one way and it just goes totally in the opposite direction, or things happen that you did not anticipate to happen. So that means that it is what it is. So the like I said, Tom Brady got his seventh Super Bowl ring, which is an amazing feat. And I would go out on a limb and say, he's officially going into the books as the GOAT of football. Whether he comes back next season or not remains to be seen. I know he hints around saying he'll be back, but realistically, he pushes 44. I doubt it. So, and he is the oldest player in the NFL. So, hell, he's older than some of the coaches, but George Shultz, he was former President Ronald Reagan's Secretary of State. He also passed away over the weekend at the age of 100. Now, a lot of people don't know who he was or remember, anyways, but he advanced some pretty strong foreign policies at that falling of the Berlin Wall and the opening of the Eastern Bloc and everything in Europe and what have you. But he was the orchestrator behind a lot of that. So he's set the tone for the ending of the Cold War during the 80s. So on behalf on behalf of TECN family, we extend our thoughts and prayers to the families and loved ones of George Shultz. In austere news, and I say austere because it was I ran across this article and it jumped at me because removed from the Hall of Fame, and I automatically in my mind correlated that to the passing of Leon Spinks. But no, there's a different Spinks dealing with baseball. His name is J.G. Taylor Spinks. So weird that let me digress because I feel myself getting worked up here because it was when I read the story, it was just like, what the? So J.G. Taylor Spinks was inducted into the baseball fame for his broadcasting and journalism covering baseball back from 1914 to 1962. Okay, he was voted out of the Hall of Fame just recently because of for his racism from back then. Yes, you heard me right. He was voted out of the Hall of Fame. I didn't catch what year he was inducted into the Hall of Fame, but he was voted out of the Hall of Fame just recently because of his racism. Now, mind you, he was I guess you could say, a sportscaster from 1914 to 1962. Okay, this was right at the pinnacle time of segregation, discrimination, you name it, the height of racism in America in sports, especially because at that time they didn't allow blacks to play baseball into the major leagues. So you had the what was called back then the Negro League. Don't politically correct me. But at the time, it was called the Negro League with Satchel Paige. Oh, man. Eons of greats were playing, and Jackie Robinson was being one of the cream of the crop players, was extrapolated or extracted rather from that to play with the Brooklyn Dodgers at the time, breaking the color barrier into baseball. And I can guarantee you, I can guarantee you that players of that time that are now in the Hall of Fame, managers, sportscasters, you name it, the entire baseball league of the time from the 60s prior probably had a lot of racism going on with them. They probably had a lot of commentary. So I pitch this to the folks of the Baseball Hall of Fame. Are you going to go back and remove every single person of that era from the Hall of Fame? Because it's undoubtedly true that a majority, if not all, had some kind of racial going on at the time. So I saw the story. I was like, what? Really? Like, you're picking on this guy? He's dead. He can't even defend himself, or his family probably. But okay, whatever. I digress. I don't get it. I understand. We're in an age of social justice. We wanna make our voices heard. We wanna have inclusion and all that good stuff. But Jesus Christ, folks, come on now. You're sitting here flipping through the pages of the Hall of Fame books, like, oh, this guy, he was racist. Yeah, I remember he wrote something back then calling somebody a Negro. Like, seriously? Like, come on now. But, hey, like I said, if you're gonna go down that road, you probably need to equalize that across the board in all sports domains and everything. If you're gonna do that, you're setting yourself a precedent for some work to be cut out for you. But like I said, I digress on that because I really don't care. But it's just one of those things that stood out to me as just like dumb. But folks, we'll be right back. We're gonna jump to a commercial break. Stay tuned.
You are listening to the Exceptional Conservative Network. For more information, go to www.theexceptionalconservativeshow.com.
Put your hands together.
Damn!
Say it again.
Hey! What you doing back here? Mufasa!
Say it again. Feel right in his...
I've just discovered that I may have a son here in this land. How much child support is she getting from? The king pays no child support.
No child support for 30 years and you came back? You was a dummy.
Hello, I am Hakim Jaffer, king of Zamunda. You are the heir to the throne.
Yes, my father.
He's supposed to be like the prince of Wakanda.
Wakanda is a fictional place.
Not to everybody.
Zamunda is a very real nation.
I don't need no handout.
Wait a minute.
All right, I'm gonna pack. Okay,
Presenting King Hakim's son from America.
And my mom's.
And his mom's.
Children, this is your brother.
Hey, Quine. I'm sorry I slept with your man.
This happened before we even met.
It's not like you're the first man I've ever been with.
What did you just say about the other men?
Coming to America, now it's coming to me.
I always thought that Mika was going to be queen.
A woman isn't allowed to rule Zamunda. It's the law.
Did it ever occur to you that Mika wanted to be your heir?
Would you dare banish me from my own bedroom?
How you doing, Hakim?
I'm getting it from everywhere. I have upset my family.
You must be strong.
And General Izzy would love nothing more than to take over Zamunda.
Raise it higher.
I'm a king,
Put your hands together.
Like that.
Say it again.
Give me all.
It's a party over here!
I must admit, your style is foreign to my kingdom, but is impressive.
That's right.
There you go.
Let me hear you say, hey, ho.
Hey, ho.
No, don't do that. That's his mother.
Oh, don't you say to
No, not to his mother.
Almost ready to become a prince.
Almost.
It is time.
Ceremonial circumcision.
Bring forward the royal machete.
Machete.
They're gonna sharpen your tool, nephew.
Coming to America, now it's coming to me. I'm a king, I'm a king, I'm a king.
You are listening to the Exceptional Conservative Network. For more information, go to www.theexceptionalconservativeshow.com.
Hey, welcome back. So, Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden is coming out with a new book, and it's entitled "Beautiful Things." I can't believe the audacity of this guy. You know, he's became so emboldened and so brash and bold about that. We all know by now. I hope everyone knows by now all the stuff that he has done, and you come out and you're like, I'm gonna write a book. It's a memoir of my life. What are you serious? Man, I'll be trying to hide. I'll be in another island or another country somewhere, laying low key as possible until my father or my family get through the administration, and I would not have my name brought up in media ever again, knowing that I went through and done things that would cause such scrutiny to my family and myself. I just wouldn't. Most people with common sense, but then again, he doesn't have any common sense because his brains are fried from drugs. But like, damn, dude, seriously, he gets a $2 million book deal for this fire starter kit. And we got Senator John out of Missouri, who gets his book deals canceled because he was fighting for the right to have the election process play out. I'll put it like that. So, folks, we're living in a bizarre world for real. Because and Biden still has ties to China through business deals, and he's trying to get them. He's trying to unwind from them. He shouldn't have been in them in the first place. Because, folks, I'm serious. Like, the media has done no due diligence whatsoever in pressing this serious issue. Now, I had some commentary came up the other day saying, well, Ivanka Trump has business deals in China. Yeah, publicly known. Went through the FEC, FTC, Federal Trade Commission, went through Congress, went through everybody to get patents and everything. They always been in business with China. We all know this. We know their products are made over there in China. We know this stuff. But Hunter, on the other hand, has these nefarious businesses that have these austere names to them that no one's ever heard of. No one's bothered to really look into them. And then they're like subsidiaries of other companies. And this is how the money laundering and everything else went on. Come on, folks. Don't be silly. Don't sit here and try to justify it or try to equalize it to somebody else who has business dealings in China, especially coming out of the Trump family, because they're not. It's not the same. Here we see that no experience Hunter was part of the board of directors and everything else for Burisma out of Ukraine. Like, why? Has all these other business dealings with other Chinese companies and other Chinese companies in other countries. Like, I'm just like baffled as to people can't draw two and two together to see that he was doing this all in the namesake of his father, who was dealing with the foreign affairs policies of these said companies. So they were skimming milk off the top, or I should say, skimming the cream off the top of the milk. But people don't see that. People are like, oh, okay. But it's funny how when it comes to liberals, there's this general acceptance of the corruption that comes out from what they do. They're like, oh well, you know that's just how it is. No, don't sit here and justify it or accept it and say that's just the way it is or whatever. But liberals, they have this. I don't even know what to call it, but this weird obsession with not holding their people accountable when it comes to these things. But let it be a Republican. Oh my God, it's crucifixion time. Crucifixion time. They're getting crucified. It's just boom. Look at what happened to Marjorie Taylor Greene over the last couple of weeks. But you got people like AOC, Pelosi, Maxine Waters. The list goes on and on and on. Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, and many others. Kamala Harris. All these folks have done similar or worse things, but they skate by like, oh, it's whatever. It's crazy, very, very crazy. But then we have the Biden administration talking about whether or not they're going to allow President Trump to continue to get intelligence briefings. Folks, that is a matter of national security. That you're saying, no, we're not going to let the president get intelligence briefings. Folks, he was the former president of the United States. Just like precedently, every other president, they still get, and vice president, they still get intelligence briefings. They still get national security briefings and everything else on what's going on so they can stay abreast to what's happening because they were part of the mix or the catalyst to a lot of things that are going on today or that has bled over into the next administration. So yes, they need to know what's going on. And for this administration to just say, well, I don't know if he should get briefings anymore. I'm like, no. And if they pursue this route, and I give credit to President Biden with an asterisk that he's leaving that up to the agencies to do, but we all know how that's going to play. That was an email. Don't give them or modify them or alternate them something, but don't give them the same thing that I'm giving. We saw this happen with under the 2016 transition team between Obama and Trump. We saw the exact same thing went down. Mind blown. But anyways, folks, we'll be right back. I can't deal with y'all. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.
You are listening to the Exceptional Conservative Network. For more information, go to www.theexceptionalconservativeshow.com.
Have you heard about Thrive? It's a question asked 1,000 times a day. The Thrive 8-week experience has become the fastest growing health and wellness movement in North America. Over 10 million people have started the experience, and anywhere from 10 to 50,000 experience orders ship out every day. Why is this 6-letter word, THRIVE, turned into a phenomenon? Because it's simple. 1. Take 2 Thrive Premium Lifestyle Capsules on an empty stomach as soon as your feet hit the floor in the morning. 2. 20 minutes later, drink the Thrive Ultra Micronized Lifestyle Mix. 3. Apply patent-pending DFT Dermafusion technology to clean, dry skin. That's it. You're all done. And now you're set to thrive for the day. Because it's innovative. We all have nutritional gaps. No matter how well we eat or live, we simply can't get the body everything it needs from a nutritional standpoint. That's why Thrive was formulated. To supplement your diet and lifestyle. Once you complete your simple Thrive 3 steps in the morning, you've now introduced 3 different Thrive formulas that synergistically work as one. Feeding your body over 100 premium-grade vitamins, minerals, plant extracts, digestive enzymes, probiotics, antioxidants, protein, fiber, and more. The premium-grade nutrition helps fill in your body's nutritional gaps because it flat out works. Check out what just a few Thrivers are saying about their Thrive experience.
I couldn't believe how great that I was feeling from it.
I noticed a huge difference. A huge difference. I didn't even think I needed it.
I'm down 73 pounds. I'm at my high school graduation weight.
I was more patient with my kids, sleeping better, really loving life again. I felt like I was in my 20s, early 20s again.
Because I've tried other products in the past, but it was like remembering to take this in the morning, take this in the afternoon, take this before bed. So the simplicity of those 3 steps felt like I was living my best life.
It really just rocked my world. It was energized, but it was joy.
From then on, it's just changed my life, and every day has been better.
It's like somebody installed new lights. Everything was brighter, clearer.
It's laughing and smiling and being present and not being so exhausted.
Thrive is where it's at.
Now that you've heard about Thrive, the next question is, are you ready to start the experience? Learn more at Lindell.com and Facebook.com/LindellBrands. Find out how to get your Thrive Experience products for free by referring 2 friends to do the experience with you. Find out how to not only earn free products, but earn commissions as well for sharing the Thrive Experience with others as a Lindell brand promoter. The decision to take the Thrive Experience or share the experience with others is all up to you. Just start your Thrive Experience today.
You are listening to the Exceptional Conservative Network. For more information, go to www.theexceptionalconservativeshow.com.
Hey, well, Lindell just released I guess you could say it's a movie, documentary, mini documentary. I don't know what you would call it really. We'll just say movie. But it's called Absolute Proof. And in this movie, he makes the greatest compelling arguments about what went down during the elections. Now, he has different guests on throughout this 2-hour block, explaining the anomalies, explaining these charts, explaining cases, and everything else. And I found it to be very, very a real well put together piece, minus the transition. I guess their cinematographer editor was not really that good at that. But either way, I highly encourage you to check it out. Watch it for yourself. Whether you believe that there was the F word with the election or not, watch it and tell me what you think. Put it in the comments. Send me an email. Tweet me. Whatever. But let me know what you think. But I find it, and I talked about this last week. YouTube and Vimeo yanked this movie, Mike Lindell's movie, off of their platforms, citing that anything discussing election fraud past the safe harbor deadline date of December 6th would be removed from their platforms. Okay, here we are in February 8th, or at the time, February 6th, maybe, that, it was released. But for people to sit here and dictate to the masses what they can and cannot talk about, that should be alarming to you. That should cause some kind of concern. It's like, why don't you want us to talk about it? Well, all the things that are being exposed around it, with all the things that's being discussed, but you don't want us to talk about it. You don't want us to discuss it because things are coming to light. Everything around the Capitol breach on January 6th. Things are coming about that. And now it's like, oh, well, that's kind of like just speculation, or that's just an opinion, or that's that person's truth. God damn it. It's still relevant information. So, like I say, I take pause for people to sit here and try to suppress others from talking about these things on their platform. Or I had a guy come on my page when I posted from our TECN site, the movie listing times and everything for my audience to check it out. Some Yahoo, I'm sure from China, with a fake pro job, gave me this elaborate explanation as to why there was no voter fraud and why the Electoral College did what they did and why the Senate did what they did and blah, 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 and how we're a democracy. And I reply with two things. One, did you watch the movie? And number two, we're not a democracy. We're a republic. No copy and paste job there. It was just those two sentences. So, but anyways, I can't deal. The House and Senate passes a $1.9 trillion stimulus package without the Republicans. Yes, pass political politics to where Republicans to vote against it, basically, to go back and forth and say yay, nay. They're just like, hey, here it is, pass, done. What kind of government are we in? I'm telling you, it's a bizarre world. But more importantly, that is very, very dangerous to do. And I say that because, number one, when and I'm not gonna say if, when the Republicans take back the House and the Senate, it's gonna probably be an overwhelming majority. Although we did just have a couple die and are planning to retire in 22, that's okay. It happens. But when the Republicans take back the House and the Senate in 22, it's gonna be an overwhelming majority. Don't get mad. You reap what you sow. Don't get mad when they pull these same stunts. Not that I'm gonna condone it, not that I say I'm gonna agree with it, but and hey, what's good when this is all these things that are going on, and I'm gonna talk about this on Friday more so. I'm gonna get more into the legislative side of the house on what's going on there. Excuse me, but it's crazy to see they ran through this stimulus package, of which, ladies and gentlemen, a majority of that money is not going to you. It is going to all of these liberal pet projects around the world, literally around the world. Green New Deal, minimum wage hike to $15 an hour, abortion, foreign country abortion funding, immigration funding, Joe Biden pledged $4 billion to go to Central America. I talked about this a couple weeks ago. And for those of us at home here, all we get is maybe $1,200. I was like, what? I was up late. I'm sorry. But yeah, craziness. Crazy times we're in. Folks, when we come back after this next break here, I'm going to give you I'm going to play for you a TED Talk out to the end of the show. But I'm going to play for you this TED Talk, and it's by his name is Lawrence Lessig. And this TED Talk was created back in 2013. I implore you to stick around and watch this, because although he is a bleeding heart liberal, you can just tell. And I think he alludes to it. He actually says it himself. But the presentation he gives is actually spot on. And I agree with a lot of Democrats or a lot of liberals on a lot of things when they're being sensible about it and not just blabbering and ranting and raving about whatever with their hats. But anyways, no, seriously. When we come back, check this out. He explains very, very well, eloquently, about how our government works in terms of being a democracy, being a republic versus a democracy and everything else. So check it out. Stay tuned.
You are listening to the Exceptional Conservative Network. For more information, go to www.theexceptionalconservativeshow.com. You are listening to the Exceptional Conservative Network. For more information, go to www.theexceptionalconservativeshow.com.
Once upon a time, there was a place called Lesterland. Now, Lesterland looks a lot like the United States. Like the United States, it has about 311 million people, and of that 311 million people, it turns out 144,000 are called Lester. If Matt's in the audience, I just borrowed that. I'll return it in a second, this character from your series. So 144,000 are called Lester, which means about 0.05% is named Lester. Now, Lesters and Lesterland have this extraordinary power. There are two elections every election cycle in Lesterland. One is called the general election. The other is called the Lester election. And in the general election, it's the citizens who get to vote, but in the Lester election, it's the Lesters who get to vote. And here's the trick. In order to run in the general election, you must do extremely well in the Lester election. You don't necessarily have to win, but you must do extremely well. Now, what can we say about democracy in Lesterland? Well, we can say, number one, as the Supreme Court said in Citizens United, the people have the ultimate influence over elected officials. Because after all, there is a general election. But only after the Lesters have had their way with the candidates who wish to run in the general election. And number two, obviously, this dependence upon the Lesters is going to produce a subtle, understated, we could say camouflaged bending to keep the Lesters happy. Okay, so we have a democracy, no doubt, but it's dependent upon the Lesters and dependent upon the people. It has a competing dependencies, we could say conflicting dependencies, depending upon who the Lesters are. Okay, that's Lesterland. Now, there are three things I want you to see now that I've described Lesterland. Number one, the United States is Lesterland. The United States is Lesterland. The United States also looks like this, also has two elections. One we call the general election. The second we should call the money election. In the general election, it's the citizens who get to vote if you're over 18. In some states, if you have an ID. In the money election, it's the funders who get to vote. The funders who get to vote. And just like in Lesterland, the trick is to run in the general election, you must do extremely well. In the money election, you don't necessarily have to win. There is Jerry Brown, but you must do extremely well. And here's the key. There are just as few relevant funders in USA land as there are Lesters in Lesterland. Now you say, really? Really? 0.05%? Well, here are the numbers from 2010. 0.26% of America gave $200 or more to any federal candidate. 0.05% gave the maximum amount to any federal candidate. 0.01%, the 1% of the 1%, gave $10,000 or more to federal candidates. And in this election cycle, my favorite statistic is 0.000042%. For those of you doing the numbers, you know that's 132 Americans gave 60% of the super PAC money spent in the cycle we have just seen ending. So I'm just a lawyer. I look at this range of numbers, and I say it's fair for me to say it's 0.05% who are irrelevant funders in America. In this sense, the funders are our Lesters. Now, what can we say about this democracy in USA land? Well, as the Supreme Court said in Citizens United, we could say, of course, the people have the ultimate influence over the elected officials. We have a general election, but only after the funders have had their way with the candidates who wish to run in that general election. And number two, obviously, this dependence upon the funders produces a subtle, understated, camouflaged bending to keep the funders happy. Candidates for Congress and members of Congress spend between 30 and 70% of their time raising money to get back to Congress or to get their party back into power. And the question we need to ask is, what does it do to them, these humans, as they spend their time behind a telephone calling people they've never met, but calling the tiniest slice of the 1%? As anyone would, as they do this, they develop a sixth sense, a constant awareness about how what they do might affect their ability to raise money. They become, in the words of the X-Files, shapeshifters, as they constantly adjust their views in light of what they know will help them to raise money, not on issues 1 to 10, but on issues 11 to 1,000. Leslie Byrne, a Democrat from Virginia, describes that when she went to Congress, she was told by a colleague, quote, always lean to the green. Then to clarify, she went on, he was not an environmentalist. So here, too, we have a democracy dependent upon the funders and dependent upon the people, competing dependencies, possibly conflicting dependencies depending upon who the funders are. Okay, the United States is Lesterland, point number one. Here's point number two. The United States is worse than Lesterland. Worse than Lesterland. Because you can imagine in Lesterland, if we Lesters got a letter from the government that said, hey, you get to pick who gets to run in the general election, we would think maybe of a kind of aristocracy of the Lesters. You know, there are Lesters from every part of social society. There are rich Lesters, poor Lesters, black Lesters, white Lesters. Not many women Lesters, but put that to the side one second. We have Lesters from everywhere. We could think, what could we do to make Lesterland better? It's at least possible the Lesters would act for the good of Lesterland. But in our land, in this land, in USA land, there are certainly some sweet Lesters out there, many of them in this room here today, but the vast majority of the Lesters act for the Lesters. Because the shifting coalitions that are comprising the 0.05% are not comprising it for the public interest, it's for their private interest. In this sense, the USA is worse than Lesterland. And finally, point number three. Whatever one wants to say about Lesterland against the background of its history, its traditions, in our land, in USA land, Lesterland is a corruption. A corruption. Now, by corruption, I don't mean brown paper bag, cash secreted among members of Congress. I don't mean Rob Blagojevich sense of corruption. I don't mean any criminal act. The corruption I'm talking about is perfectly legal. It's a corruption relative to the framers' baseline for this republic. The framers gave us what they called a republic. But by a republic, they meant a representative democracy. And by a representative democracy, they meant a government, as Madison put it in Federalist 52, that would have a branch that would be dependent upon the people alone. So here's the model of government. They have the people and the government with this exclusive dependency. But the problem here is that Congress has evolved a different dependence. No longer a dependence upon the people alone, increasingly a dependence upon the funders. Now, this is a dependence too, but it's different and conflicting from a dependence upon the people alone so long as the funders are not the people. This is a corruption. Now, there's good news and bad news about this corruption. One bit of good news is it's bipartisan, equal opportunity corruption. It blocks the left on a whole range of issues that we on the left really care about. It blocks the right, too, as it makes principled arguments of the right increasingly impossible. So, the right wants smaller government. When Al Gore was vice president, his team had an idea for deregulating a significant portion of the telecommunications industry. The chief policy man took this idea to Capitol Hill, and as he reported back to me, the response was, hell no. If we deregulate these guys, how are we going to raise money from them? This is a system that's designed to save the status quo, including the status quo of big and invasive government. It works against the left and the right, and that, you might say, is good news. But here's the bad news. It's a pathological, democracy-destroying corruption. Because in any system where the members are dependent upon the tiniest fraction of us for their election, that means the tiniest number of us, the tiniest number of us can block reform. I know that should have been like a rock or something. I can only find cheese. I'm sorry. So there it is. Block reform. Because there is an economy here, an economy of influence, an economy with lobbyists at the center, which feeds on polarization. It feeds on dysfunction. The worse that it is for us, the better that it is for this fundraising. Henry David Thoreau, there are 1,000 hacking at the branches of evil to one who is striking at the root. This is the root. Okay, now, every single one of you know this. You couldn't be here if you didn't know this, yet you ignore it. You ignore it. This is an impossible problem. You focus on the possible problems, like eradicating polio from the world, or taking an image of every single street across the globe, or building the first real universal translator, or building a fusion factory in your garage. These are the manageable problems, so you ignore So you ignore this corruption, but we cannot ignore this corruption anymore. We need a government that works. And not works for the left or the right, but works for the left and the right, the citizens of the left and right, because there is no sensible reform possible until we end this corruption. So I want you to take hold, to grab the issue you care the most about. Climate change is mine, but it might be financial reform or a simpler tax system or inequality. Grab that issue, sit it down in front of you, look straight in its eyes and tell it there is no Christmas this year. There will never be a Christmas. We will never get your issue solved until we fix this issue first. So it's not that mine is the most important issue. It's not. Yours is the most important issue, but mine is the first issue. The issue we have to solve before we get to fix the issues you care about. No sensible reform, and we cannot afford a world, a future, with no sensible reform. Okay, so how do we do it? Turns out the analytics here are easy, simple. If the problem is members spending an extraordinary amount of time fundraising from the tiniest slice of America, the solution is to have them spend less time fundraising, but fundraise from a wider slice of America, to spread it out, to spread the funder influence so that we restore the idea of dependence upon the people alone. And to do this does not require a constitutional amendment changing the First Amendment. To do this would require a single statute, a statute establishing what we think of as small dollar funded elections, a statute of citizen-funded campaigns. And there are any number of these proposals out there. Fair Elections Now Act, the American Anti-Corruption Act, an idea in my book that I call the Grant and Franklin Project to give vouchers to people to fund elections, an idea of John Sarbanes called the Grassroots Democracy Act. Each of these would fix this corruption by spreading out the influence of funders to all of us. The analytics are easy here. It's the politics that's hard. Indeed, impossibly hard, because this reform would shrink K Street. Shrink K Street. And Capitol Hill, as Congressman Jim Cooper, a Democrat from Tennessee, put it, has become a farm league for K Street. A farm league for K Street. Members and staffers and bureaucrats have an increasingly common business model in their head, business model focused on their life after government, their life as lobbyists. 50% of the Senate between 1998 and 2004 left to become lobbyists, 42% of the House. Those numbers have only gone up. And as United Republic calculated last April, the average increase in salary for those who they tracked was 1,452%. So it's fair to ask, how is it possible for them to change this? Now, I get this skepticism. I get this cynicism. I get this sense of impossibility. But I don't buy it. This is a solvable issue. If you think about the issues our parents tried to solve in the 20th century, issues like racism, or sexism, or the issue that we've been fighting in this century, homophobia. Those are hard issues. You don't wake up one day no longer a racist. It takes generations to tear that intuition, that DNA out of the soul of a people. But this is a problem of just incentives. Just incentives. Change the incentives and the behavior changes. And the states that have adopted small dollar funded systems have seen overnight a change in the practice. When Connecticut adopted this system, in the very first year, 78% of the elected representatives gave up large contributions and took small contributions only. It's solvable. Not by being a Democrat, not by being a Republican. It's solvable by being citizens, by being Tedizens. Because if you want to kickstart reform, look, I could kickstart reform at half the price of fixing energy policy. I could give you back a republic. Okay, but even if you're not yet with me, even if you believe this is impossible, What the 5 years since I spoke at TED has taught me, as I've spoken about this issue again and again, is even if you think it's impossible, that is irrelevant. Irrelevant. I spoke at Dartmouth once, and a woman stood up after I spoke, I write in my book, and she said to me, "Professor, you've convinced me. This is hopeless. Hopeless. There's nothing we can do." When she said that, I scrambled. I tried to think, how do I respond to that hopelessness? What is that sense of hopelessness? And what hit me was an image of my 6-year-old son. And I imagined a doctor coming to me and saying, your son has terminal brain cancer, and there's nothing you can do. Nothing you can do. So, would I do nothing? You just sit there, accept that? Okay, nothing I can do. I'm going off to build Google Glass. Of course not. I would do everything I could, and I would do everything I could because this is what love means, that the odds are irrelevant, and that you do whatever the hell you can, the odds be damned. And then I saw the obvious link, because even we liberals love this country. And so when the pundits and the politicians say that change is impossible, what this love of country says back is that's just irrelevant. We lose something dear, something everyone in this room loves and cherishes if we lose this republic. And so we act with everything we can to prove these pundits wrong. So here's my question. Do you have that love? Do you have that love? Because if you do, then what the hell are you? What the hell are we doing? When Ben Franklin was carried from the Constitutional Convention in September of 1787, he was stopped in the street by a woman who said, "Mr. Franklin, what have you wrought?" Franklin said, "A republic, madam, if you can keep it. A republic, a representative democracy, a government dependent upon the people alone." We have lost that republic. All of us have to act to get it back. Thank you very much.
Folks, that is all the time I have with you all today. Thank you for tuning in, as always. You can follow me on Twitter, rperm, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, MeWe. I think Parler's back up. I don't know. I keep saying that, but I have to check. I don't know. But I'm on all those platforms. Gab. I'm on Gab. I haven't really interacted too much on Gab lately, but I'm on there. If you want to be a guest on the show, reach out to me. I'd be happy to have you. If you want to advertise on the show, reach out to me. I'm glad to showcase your products, your services, whatever it is that you want to do. And if you want to support the show, you can do so by Cashapp, $RPerm4US, RPURHAM, the number 4 US for us, and also on PayPal, RPerm4US. So, thank you all once again, and please go on Amazon. You can pick up my book, The New You, Down with the Wisdom, and have a blessed week. Talk to you all later.
You are listening to the Exceptional Conservative Network. For more information, go to www.theexceptionalconservative.com.